what she had learned. A season turns. In Greece, the leaves were turning, and all that she had been learning was a fruit long enjoyed, whose seeds had been carefully kept. She had enough of a space that she could return to, that she'd put them straight to the earth, not exactly knowing not exactly knowing for whose future they had been sown. In the earth, it was not quite quiet, and was alive with many tendrils. In the earth, it was not yet quiet, and alive with many tendrils. It was on one such tip that we shall make a visit. Gallivanting, rambling, turnover shapes was all his shoulders, and most certainly his taste, in wine and in the choice of distance that he chose from his fate. Fatua Fortuna, stood at the gates. She demanded that they get it right. Informations gleaned for centuries did not quite do for adequacies. It is their own shortcomings that make the trap. The other, older fate pronounced, as if such was a final sort given. Fatua Fortuna knelt. She'd been born to this noble kind and palisade, with everything up in the clouds, and yet, whenever faced with the shells of empty words, or, as was this case, the blurred distinction of something as fine-tuned and alchemical as her namesake, the blurred in this case, the blurred distinction of something as fine-tuned and alchemical as her own namesake. It was as if the whole world crashed, as if her tongue had been made of rubber, limp, dead, and because of this instrument of suffocation, she became trapped inside her own body. It was a precarious place, and one etched by many visits. Of course, slowly she could be coaxed out, and inhabit once more her flesh. And really, this was the reason now that she knelt. It was a mechanism of safekeeping she had discovered in her will and desperation to make a different path to take. Kneeling, she inhabited with a devotion. I am your child, she would say, as all of her fill fell flat from those lofty heights straight to the earth. Sometimes it was hard onto rocks, jagged and ripping into her flesh with thorns and roughness, to wake her from the growing retreat. Come back, she would say through gritted teeth. And others, like today, was hills and grasses like hay that her knees came down to. As she demanded to be heard, the softness melted her anger, which had no use in this place. Instead, the use of this place was ripples, was ribbing, and entered quickly her bloodstream like a highway of information. She would have to travel, this time, to make a solvent of her latest predicament. She would travel to the man that made a distance from his fate. she would travel. Traveling Song, Chapter 2. It is their own shortcomings that make the trap, spoke the elder Fate, as they argued to what reasons there were, that can't even hold their reality straight, making a constant muddle, figuring truth out of such a mish, such a mash, that the whole thing either destabilizes and drops them off our raft, or makes for a much misshapen form, doing no body justice, doing no thing justice. The Fate thought of calling Justice in, to see what she thought of this. Justice was hard to see, though. Her own form had splintered long ago, making a kind of blur, for which she'd preferred to stand back. Justice seemed to make more sense from afar, and was always a ways off. It was always a ways off.